Hey bookworms, welcome back to the Bonified Bookworm. I'm your host Rachel, and if you're watching this channel, then you're here to read along with me and hopefully learn some English. So I don't know what I did, but I accidentally touched the little countdown to the camera. No idea what I clicked. I was just messing with the phone, and it started. So that's good. So I wanted to mention just something that we did last weekend. We went to a smash room. I don't think I mentioned that before, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great stress relief. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it. As I've heard from several people, oh, if I want to smash stuff, I'll just smash it in my yard. Well, I don't have a yard, so I was very happy to pay the $30 and go smash some stuff. As far as books, we are continuing our journey in Touching the Void with Joe Simpson. And when we left off, Simon had almost fallen, and luckily he was attached to Joe, and so Joe stopped his fall. So we are on page 58, chapter 4, On the Edge. There was no question of traversing lower down on the east face, for this was a continuous series of large flutings running down into the clouds, which had closed over the void again several hundred feet below us. It had stopped snowing. The flutings would be impossibly slow and dangerous to climb across, and to descend lower would see us lost in the whiteout conditions below the cloud. There were few choices left open to us. Simon stood up and began moving gingerly along the crest, 5 feet from the edge, along the continual crack line running away from us. I moved further down the east face to wait until he had taken out all the slack rope. At least then I could stop him if the ridge broke away again, but eventually I would have to join him, and we would move together along the ridge. As I climbed up to rejoin his tracks, it occurred to me that I had felt a moment of anxiety only minutes before Simon had fallen. I had noticed this in the past and always wondered about it. There had been no good reason for the sudden stab of worry. We had been on the mountain for over 50 hours. My goodness. And perhaps he had become attuned to potential threats. So much so that I had sensed something would happen without understanding quite what it would be. I didn't like this irrational theory, since anxiety had returned with a vengeance. I could see that Simon had also tensed up. The descent was already far more serious than we had reckoned. I moved carefully. I watched the crack line, checked I had put my feet exactly where Simon's footsteps were, and continued nervously 150 feet behind Simon, who had his back to me. I might have a chance if I saw him fall in time. I could throw myself down the opposite side of the ridge and expect the ropes to stop us as they sawed through the ridge. He would have little or no warning. He might hear me scream out or hear the ridge break, but he would have to turn around to see which side I was falling down before he could jump to the safe side. It seemed to me that the most likely accident would involve the whole ridge collapsing, taking us both down in one very long breakaway of snow. I saw the crack close up, and when I moved past it, I breathed a sigh of relief. The ridge was slightly safer at last. Unfortunately, it now dropped away steeply and twisted back on itself with each turn, huge cornices bulging out over the west face. I saw that these difficulties eased further in the distance, so I wasn't surprised when Simon began descending the east face. He intended to lose enough height to be able to traverse directly across to the easier section and avoid descending the tortured ridge. The easier ground lay a couple of 100 feet below our point on the ridge. I guessed how far we needed to descend before following Simon down. We hadn't descended far before I realized how poor the light had become. I checked my watch and was surprised to see that it had gone 5 o'clock. That's an odd sentence. Sorry. We had left the summit nearly 3.5 hours earlier, and yet had made little progress along the ridge. It would be dark in an hour, and to make things more difficult, the storm clouds had rolled over us again, and snowflakes were blowing up from the east into our faces. The temperature had also dropped sharply, and with the wind building up, it felt icy cold whenever we stopped. Simon descended a gully between two flutings. I followed slowly, trying to keep the distance between us by moving only when the ropes moved. I descended into a uniform whiteness, snow and cloud merging into one. After a while, I decided that we must have reached a point where we could now traverse horizontally across to the easier ground. But Simon carried on down. I shouted for him to stop, but received only a muffled reply. I yelled louder, and the ropes stopped moving through my gloves. Neither of us could understand the other's shouts, so I moved down to get within earshot. I was alarmed to find that the gully became steeper, and I kept slipping. I turned round to face into the slope, but it was still hard to remain in control. I was close to him when I heard Simon shout again, and I could hear his query about why we had stopped. At that moment, the snow swooshed away from under my feet, and I dropped swiftly. I had both axes dug deep into the gully, but they didn't stop me. I screamed a warning and suddenly bumped heavily against Simon. Stopping, jammed up against us. Jesus, shit. I thought we'd had it. This is fucking stupid. That's what I've been saying. Simon said nothing. I went face first into the gully and tried to calm down. My heart seemed to be trying to hammer its way out of my chest, and my legs shook weakly. I had been fortunate that I was so close to Simon when I fell, not too far above to have built up enough speed to knock him down. "You okay?" Simon asked. "Yes, scared, that's all." "Yeah, we've gone far too low." "Oh, I was thinking perhaps we could descend all the way into the eastern Glacier Bay." "You're joking, bloody hell. I just nearly killed both of us on this bit, and we haven't a clue what it's like below us. But that ridge is crazy. We'll never get down it tonight. We're not getting off this tonight anyway. For God's sake, it's almost dark now. If we rush off down there, we'll be lucky if we ever get off this bloody thing." Okay, calm down. It was just an idea." "Sorry, I was freaked out. Couldn't we traverse out sideways from here, and get back to the ridge where it drops down?" "Okay, you first." I sorted out the tangles from my fall and then began digging into the right side of the fluting. An hour and a half later, I had managed to cross innumerable flutings and gullies, and Simon was following a rope's length behind me. We had covered less than 200 feet, and by then it was snowing hard, bitterly cold and windy. It was also dark, and we were having to use our head torches. Stumbling through a wall of sugary snow and into another gully, I kicked against rock beneath the snow. "Simon," I shouted, "stop where you are a while. There's a small rock wall here. It's a bit tricky to get around it." I decided to place a rock peg in the wall and then tentatively balance around the obstacle. I succeeded with the rock peg, but somehow managed to fall down round the wall without coming onto the rope. Simon employed an equally basic climbing technique, using gravity and body weight, jumping down the wall without being able to see where he would land, but correct in the assumption that when he did, it would be with such force that he would safely bury himself firmly in the loose snow beyond. The only flaw I could find in his reasoning was that he didn't know whether his landing would be loose snow or rock. We were too tired and cold by then to care. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, he's gonna jump, and then what if he lands on more rock or ice and he can't clamp on or whatever they call it. We're gonna stop here on page 61 because I forgot to stop my timer and I don't want to go over. So we'll stop here and pick up again in another day. Hope y'all have a good week.